This is Henry Hall speaking to you. 5:15 is known to millions of listeners as the time of the daily broadcast of the BBC Dance Orchestra, and this tune is based on the notes BBC.
5:15, rah-rah-rah, BBC Dance Orchestra.
On the evening of March the 15th, 1932, the newly appointed director of the BBC Dance Orchestra conducted his first broadcast. Henry Hall had officially taken over from Jack Payne. It was a moment of twofold historic interest. The orchestra was broadcasting for the first time from the new BBC building in Portland Place. About a stone's throw from here, Henry Hall has his office, and the other day I called in to see him to talk about his golden years as conductor of the BBC Dance Band.
I suppose I ought to say hello everyone, this is Henry Hall speaking, and I think I'd like to recollect, perhaps over my life, an appreciation of the very many people who I've met. I could mention a whole list of stars, but my private thoughts go back to appreciation of so many musicians, because I find people, they think of Henry Hall, they never think of the saxophones, the violinists, the trumpet players, the trombone players, the rhythm section. And after all, a band is a team which supply you with the warmth, the colour, often ideas, and on them you make a band, and with them you start making a style.
Henry Hall's signature tune, It's Just the Time for Dancing. In the arrangement, there was an unusual sound for dance bands at that time. It was created by one member of this new team, Dick Matthews.
Dickie was 16, an oboe player, and I heard this oboe, and I thought, this is a new sound. We haven't had this in a dance band. And I remember his father came to see me. I was very worried because this young boy, was 16, they hadn't thought of him ever going into a dance band. But there he was in, and he wanted to know whether it was going to be a regular job. And the funny thing was that he was with me for a long, long period. And then he went on to the BBC Variety Orchestra, and until his death, he worked for the BBC.
This new BBC dance band under Henry Hall was quite different in character from the Jack Payne band. It was also smaller, but each man was a hand-picked player. Among them...
Well, along the corridor here, as you came to see me, you saw up the name of Stapleton, Cyril Stapleton. He was a student at the Trinity College of Music where I, as a youngster, had been. And I remember Cyril came along. He played the oboe concerto, violin concerto, for an audition for a dance band.
Really?
So, it's silly, but I realised he'd got the ability. So he was in the BBC Dance Orchestra.
It was rather an extraordinary combination, actually, when I look back on it now, because we had one trumpet and one trombone, 4 saxophones, 2 violins, an oboe, and a rhythm section. And we actually did the first broadcast here from Broadcasting House. We had paid rehearsals for 2 weeks up in the studio right at the top of the building, number 8A, I think it was in those days. It was a military band studio.
Mm.
And we rehearsed there for a fortnight. We did our first broadcast, and then it was all apparently so tatty that the next day we moved back to Savoy Hill. And then we worked at Savoy Hill for the next few months until the studio, I think somewhere on this floor that we're in now, was available for us. And we came back and we made that our home for the next period of time.
Right from the outset, there was never any attempt to match nor even emulate Jack Payne's show band. Henry Hall's music was sweeter, more in the society hotel style. Understandable, because since 1924 he'd been broadcasting from the Glen Eagles Hotel in Scotland, showpiece of the LMS chain. And just prior to his joining the BBC, he'd been in charge of no less than 32 bands for the company. So this was the kind of music he was now bringing to the wireless public.
Have you ever been lonely? Have you ever been blue? Have you ever loved someone just as I love you? Can't you see I'm sorry for each mistake I've made? Can't you see I've changed, dear? Can't you see I've paid? Be a little forgiving. Take me back in your heart. How can I go on living now that we're apart? If you knew what I've been through, you would know why I ask you. Have you ever been lonely? Have you ever been blue?
Two members of that singing trio were to gain much fame with Henry Hall, the principal singer, Les Allen, and Burton Gillis, the lead saxophonist and one of the band's principal arrangers. Initially, the band had a mixed reception. The critic of the Melody Maker, Detector, wrote, "Well rehearsed and balanced, sax section well together. Frank Wilson, the one trumpet, capable of standing up to all the hard work imposed on him. Another trumpet at least, badly needed. Rhythm section, only ordinary. Arrangements, excellent of their type. Entertainment value, very limited. Personality, almost nil." Well, that was one view. But Henry Hall had a trick or two up his sleeve. He realized that as the band broadcast between 5:15 and 6 o'clock, a large part of his audience would be children. So he deliberately set out to appeal to them as well as their parents.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.
We made the record for Columbia, and on a recording session you make 4 titles. Right. Well, the first 2 records took rather a long time, and for the 4th title we had to do something very quickly. So we stuck the instruments around as we thought were near enough, and we looked at the clock. We had 4 minutes to go, and so we said we'll go for a master, and we made the Teddy Bears Picnic, and I know we sold over 3 million. But of course one of the enormous things was that using the xylophone, I used a sousaphone.
Yes.
We found that we'd made the perfect record, and for years the BBC tested all lines and became the test piece of all lines for all engineers virtually all around the world.
If you go down in the woods today, you'd better not go alone. It's lovely down in the woods today, but safer to stay at home. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.
For 18 months, Henry Hall and the BBC Dance Orchestra were heard but not seen. And if some critics were still hesitant about the band's popularity with the public, they had their answer when it made its first public appearance at Radio Olympia in August 1933. There was a new spirit to the band. It had been augmented. And after a visit to America in '33, Henry Hall brought back some of the ideas and techniques he'd learned there. The use of several microphones instead of one, for instance, which added a sparkle to the performances on radio and records. There was another innovation around this time, too. In actual fact, the seed had been sown not very long after the band's first BBC broadcast in 1932. They had, at that time, recorded with two rising music hall stars, Flanagan and Allen.
The riffs we never sought for, Savoys they can keep. There's only one place that we know, and that is where we sleep. Underneath the arches, we dream our dreams of bom-bom-ba-da-be-do. Underneath the bom-bom-ba-di-da-bo, on cobblestones we long bo-bo-bo-bo. Back to back, ba-body-ba-bo-ba-body-do. Tired out and bo-bo-do-bo-body-do. Sorry when the daylight comes creeping, heralding the dawn, sleeping when it's raining, and sleeping when it's fine. Trains rattling by, pavement is a P.A.L.O. Without a sheet we lay. Underneath the arches, we dream our dreams away.
Flanagan and Allen's first enormous hit, and made with the BBC Dance Band in July 1932. A little over 18 months later, in fact on Henry Hall's second anniversary as director of the BBC Dance Band, he was again in the recording studios.
And we went into the studio, and into the studio we found we'd got Elsie and Doris Waters, who were recording for Parlour. We had June, and Nona Wynne came along, and we made up a bunch of these boys. We said, why don't we put this on the air tonight and call it Henry Hall's Guest Night? And this is what we did. And that was the beginning. No rehearsal, nothing at all. When the artists used to come on, we used to write it on the blackboard to tell the band what to do.
And as a reminder of Henry Hall's famous and long-running series of guest nights, a famous record that he made on that very day that the idea was born, March the 17th, 1934. Lupino Lane and the BBC Dance Band in this song, An Elephant Never Forgets.
Dogs were born for howling, cats are always prowling, beasts are always growling, nature makes them do it. All the jungle folk have habits of their own. A worm will turn in quite the nicest way. The conger eel can always feel but hasn't much to say. A steer or deer have no lifelong regrets. You can soft soap an antelope, but an elephant never forgets. It smiles a smile while waiting for its chance, then lifts its foot and kicks you in the pants. No power can sour baboons or marmosets. The camel's always got the hump, but an elephant never forgets. of course, is such a noble beast. It never shirks, but works and doesn't mind the least. It shocks an ox to treat it like your pet. The beasts that live can all forgive, but an elephant never forgets. The rams, the lambs, the busy buzzing bees, the sows, the cows, I treat them as I please. But still, to one, I'll always pay my debt. I'm not afraid of the big bad wolf, but an elephant never forgets.
Lane and An Elephant Never Forgets, an arrangement by Burton Gillis, Henry Hall's lead saxophonist, and his first lieutenant, a towering man of 6'6", with an equally towering talent. And perhaps here we should recall some of the other arrangers who made their mark with this band, names that are still honoured in musical circles. Benjamin Frankel, who later went on to fame as a film writer, Phil Cardew, Jimmy Lally, and Bert Reed, who was the pianist with the orchestra for a long time and is now the Director of Light Music for the Australian Broadcasting Commission. It was he who made this arrangement of Goody Goody in early 1936 to feature the clarinet of Bert Gillis and the Three Sisters. Bert Reed's arrangement of Goody Goody. Well, just to digress for a moment, apparently not all Henry Hall's broadcasts in the early 30s were conducted from the plushness of the new broadcasting house. Doug Richardson, who is today the picture editor of the Radio Times, joined the corporation in 1934 and was seconded to Henry Hall.
I, in fact, became his page boy. I had to take his mail, fan mail, from Broadcasting House to a studio at Waterloo Bridge called Number 10 Studio. Well, it was a converted riverside wharf. The wharf itself was the studio, which had velvet drapes slung on the walls just to help the acoustics. And beside it was a damn great boiler which supplied the central heating to the building. The central heating, if you can call it such, was supplied to the studio by 6-inch pipes running around the top of the wall of the old wharf. We noticed that the rats used to run around the tops of these pipes. And Bert Gillis acquired an air rifle, and we used to take bets on how many each member could pop off at one session.
But it was luxury plus when in 1936 Henry Hall and BBC executives sailed on the maiden voyage of Queen Mary.
Somewhere at sea, a liner is somewhere at sea, bringing to me a traveler who will build my life anew. He's out on the sea, sailing to me, sailing to me. When shall I see my lover come home from the sea? Hurry to me, great liner, for you can make my dream come true. Wherever you be, answer my plea, somewhere at sea.
The voice of Dan Donovan, another of the singers to appear with Henry Hall through the years. The song, the official signature tune of RMS Queen Mary, which Henry Hall wrote to celebrate the maiden voyage, and which, nostalgically, accompanied her final voyage. 1936 saw another musical link with the United States. American arranger Benny Carter was invited to come to Britain to write some special shows for the BBC band. He gave pianist Bert Reed the introduction to this one, and Dan Donovan was again the vocalist in I'm Putting All My Eggs in One Basket.
I've been a roaming Romeo, my Juliets have been many, but now my roaming days are gone. Too many irons in the fire is worse than not having any. I've had my share and from now on I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I'm betting everything I've got on you. I'm giving all my love to one baby. God help me if my baby don't come through. I've got a great big amount saved up in my love account. Honey and I've decided love divided in two won't do. So I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I'm betting everything I've got on you.
All My Eggs in One Basket, one of several arrangements that Benny Carter wrote for the band. And listening to Dan Donovan, I'm reminded how well Henry Hall was served by so many singers. Val Rosing in the beginning with the Teddy Bear's Picnic and such. Les Allen, whom we've already mentioned. And then there were the ladies, among them Phyllis Robbins and Kitty Masters. He was also well served by British composers, and in return became perhaps the biggest champion ever of British compositions.
I always remember the composer, Noel Gay, came to see me one day and he said, "It's a terrible life. I write songs and nobody will play them." So I said, "Why?" So he said, "Well, they don't like 6/8." So I said, "Let me have a look at it." And he showed me the manuscript and I said, "I will record it tomorrow and I will broadcast it tomorrow. But I'd like one condition. If I initiate this thing, can I have it for my own use for 1 week?" And he said, "If you'll only play it, I'll be satisfied." So I recorded it the next day, and we played it for a week, every day. I just decided to test my strength. After all, I was in charge of the BBC Dance Orchestra. I had 8 programs, and I thought, either I make and break this, and I prove that I can make and break this. And so I took Round the Marble Arch, and it was an instant success. And within about 10 days, every band in the country was practically playing Round the Marble Arch.
While Henry Hall had us all going round the Marble Arch, he had the music going round and round too, like this, one of his own favourites, and a reminder of drummer-singer George Elric.
A girl came up, she said, "You're grand." So I replied in words low down, "Now this is how the music goes round." I blow through here, the music goes round and around, whoa, and it comes up here. I push the first valve down, the music goes down and around, whoa, and it comes up here. I push the middle valve down, the music goes down around, below, 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 diddly-ho-ho-ho, listen to the notes come out. I push the other valve down, the music goes round and around, whoa, and it comes out here. I blow through here, the music goes round and around, whoa, and it comes up here. I push the slide way out, the music goes round and about, whoa, and it comes up here. I push the slide way down, the music goes down around, below, 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 diddly-ho-ho-ho, listen to the jazz come out.
I make the funniest sound. The music goes round and around. Oh, and it comes out here.
At the BBC, Henry Hall made the music go round and round for 5.5 years, much to the public's delight. In September 1937, he decided to end the contract. And perhaps at this point, and 35 years later, it would be of interest to hear Henry Hall reflect on his time with the corporation.
When I arrived at the BBC, I arrived on a Wednesday evening, March the 15th, and when I played, I was there for entertainment. I was a show band, and I had to represent the British Broadcasting Corporation with Sir John Reef, who didn't like dance music. His favourite tune was Hallelujah, you know. And when I appeared at the Command Performance, we went into the studio in the basement there. We put on our blue jackets for the band, and we played the program to him, and he sat in solitary state in the balcony while I played it. And he said to me a line which I never forgot. He said, "You mustn't forget, Hall, when you appear on Monday night, you represent the British Broadcasting Corporation and all that it stands for."
Which Henry Hall did, and has always done, with dignity, and with his shy, retiring manner. Did he ever get cross, I wondered? Was his always the soft and benign character? I asked one of the original players in the BBC band, Cyril Stapleton.
Henry Hall always struck me as being a very soft, benign character with a heart of steel, you know. He was very nice, very charming man, but there was quite a bit of steel running through it.
And his one-time messenger boy, Doug Richardson, recalls,
The only occasion which I can remember Henry getting a little irate with the members of his band was around 1935 when Monopoly became the game of the year, as you might say. Henry's band played it hour upon hour, and I can remember Henry saying once to the members of the band, "If you only played as well as you play that ruddy game, I'd have a marvellous band."
But it was a marvellous band, all through the years, in all that it did. The children's songs, the dance music, the novelties. Many tunes became associated with it, and one of the earliest, I think, epitomizes its quality and style, Butterflies in the Rain.
When the rain is pattering helter-skelter, and the butterflies are caught out in the rain, leafy hollyhocks will murmur, "Come and shelter," until the rainbow shines again. In the heart of every rose a haven, from the pitter-patter, pitter-pat refrain. There's protection from the showers in the sympathetic flowers for the butterflies in the rain. You'll have to fold your wings, waiting for the brightness that the sun showers, neath the broad protection of the sunflowers. Gone the rain, the sky is clear again. You can carry on your sweet flirtation with every blushing rose.
So, in the autumn of 1937, Henry Hall was preparing to embark on another chapter in his career.
I joined in late 1936, early 1937, for his closing stages of the contract with the BBC prior to going out on tour.
Leslie Douglas, in those years, one more of the many fine singers to work with Henry Hall.
I think actually Henry invited me to join the organisation because I had had more experience of the stage side than I had of the studios. The vocal team at the time I joined them comprised Bob Mallin, the cowboy singer, Anita Riddell, a very pert Scots lassie, and Bernard Hunter. There was no argument about material because they were also admirably cast for character work. Bob naturally had any choice of south of the border type songs and cowboy. Bernard, who was a very good-looking boy, had the choice of romantic ballads. Anita had the cute, cheeky songs of The Love Bug Will Bite You If You Don't Watch It. You might have thought this left me nowhere, and in actual fact, I wrote a lot of my own songs to be included anyway.
And there were some, of course, that Leslie Douglas didn't write, one of which was this popular waltz ballad of the period, Not a Dry Eye in the House After It.
I paid for the lie that I told you, paid with a million tears. Why should a moment of madness bring me a lifetime of sadness? I'm sorry now, and darling, I vow I'll die if we ever part. I paid for the lie that I told you. Won't you please take me back, sweetheart?
Leslie Douglas, who appeared with Henry Hall's touring band. Through 1937, right on up to the war, the orchestra appeared all over Britain and on the continent, and continued its personal appearances and broadcasts throughout the war years. One of the speciality stage acts that Henry Hall particularly remembers and liked was a number called Three Brass Bells, which featured the trumpets.
If listeners are interested, over my desk I have a little picture framed, and it says the London Palladium, it says the BBC Dance Orchestra, Henry Hall. And the girl came in to clean my telephone, which is immediately underneath it. And she picked it up and she read, right, and she looked up there and said, pity about him, such a nice man. And today, of course, people know me as being old, one of the old boys. And somebody said, another one came in here and said, there's very few of you on the ground now, which was just sufficient to make you realize that the years have gone past, times have changed. Across there you will see a library of music of 70 years. I became a dance band leader in 1922, so I've had 50 years connected with bands. And if some of the boys today who are doing good feel as happy when they've had 50 years in the business, I should be highly delighted, perhaps a little surprised, but nevertheless, to me, pretty terrific. I'm coming up 75, and looking back over the years, I think they've been wonderfully served by the BBC, and I personally have had the most wonderful career of happiness with them that I could possibly have. So,
goodbye everyone, and here's to the next time.
To the next time, Nostalgia Plus. My thanks to Henry Hall for his reminiscences of the BBC Dance Band, and for their memories I'm grateful to Cyril Stapleton, Leslie Douglas, and Doug Richardson. And let's all echo this famous theme and say, here's to the next time.